Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is the Euclid Township Board of Supervisors workshop meeting for the month of January. Just a note before we begin, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on our township YouTube channel. Go ahead and jump right into the business agenda for today. Number one is a discussion on board priorities and goals for 2026.
Thought we could take a few minutes and just talk about what 2026 might look like, and we have some thoughts about what we'd like to get done, see if you have any other thoughts or input on these things. But just kind of taking a look at last year, we had set out I think 11 goals for the year. We proudly got 3 accomplished. And got started on a number of them. Last year we were able to develop a detailed strategy for decommissioning the Eagle View wastewater treatment plant. We were awarded the Municipal League Silver Level Sustainability Certification. We were able to get up to full staffing and have the right folks in the right positions. We started work on the creation of a 5-year strategic plan, specifically working with Westchester University. We started work on a dashboard tracker to monitor the comp plan implementation. We started work on the Rossi Master Plan, started work on Shimoda-Peck Nature Play in terms of applying for grants, the Long Range Financial Plan, capital funding strategy, started the zoning ordinance update, and we submitted for the GFOA Financial Reporting Awards and Budget Presentation Awards. And so we're waiting to hear back on that before we can cross those off the list. We're thinking in terms of 2026, our goals would be by the end of the year to have that 5-year strategic plan for the township, doing a community survey, different interviews, and really setting those 5-year goals to help guide us. Finalize that long-range financial plan and capital funding strategy, earn the Soul Smart Bronze, at least bronze level designation, indicating that we're a solar-friendly community. Developed a stormwater program and funding system for the stormwater program. Been awarded the GFOA certificates. We did actually just this week get a couple questions on our submission for the annual financial report. So we're optimistic there that we'll hear something soon. We'd like to do a school of government this year for residents, and maybe even partner that with the Citizens Police Academy. So there's something there. And then doing a space study and 10-year staffing projections for the township. Finish up the tracker for the comp plan, finalized the Rossi Park master plan, work on the negotiations for the tri-party agreement between the school district, LYA, and the township. Come up with a detailed plan of action for Jones Pond so we can get moving on that. And then begin construction of Shimoda-Peck Nature Play. We're very fortunate that so far we've been awarded $345,000 in grant funds. We're still waiting to hear on another, I think, $250,000 from the state. But we're in really good shape in terms of funding for that project. So get started on that. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts, anything else that you'd like us to focus on, prioritize?
I see a number of initiatives in here that we have all brought to the staff, in the last few months or over the last year. So I'm excited to continue that work. I know it doesn't sound very glamorous to have all these strategic and comprehensive plan things, but I would encourage the public, if they've not gotten involved in any of those task force meetings or park planning initiatives, to swing into those if they're able, or at least follow along with updates as they come in, because there is a lot of really good mid to longer term planning that's going on in the township. I'm especially excited about some of the financial and capital funding strategizing that's been going on, and excited to see that take the next few steps. So I don't think I have anything specifically to go on this list at this time. I'm sure things will come up.
Okay. No, this looks great, and I think looking back at 2025, the way it's split is accomplished versus in progress kind of underplays how well I think some of those goals weren't ever going to be completed in 20, like the zoning ordinance update is never going to be completed in 2025, but we made great progress on that, and we're carrying that into this year. So no, I think it's great. I think it's a testament to the hard work you guys are doing, and I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you. I do have a question.
Yeah.
This is just because I don't know what a school of government is.
It's a great question. So the idea is, and we've been talking a little bit more about it recently, but probably some hybrid of in-person and then video recorded sessions. So probably a 6-week program where residents can sign up and come in one night a week or one night a month. We'll figure out what that structure looks like and learn about the way government works, local government works, right? And an overview of the kind of the vast services that the township provides and the finances, talking about building and zoning, talking about building code, talking about public works and stormwater. We were even thinking about like an emergency services night where police, fire, and EMS can present. And then culminating that, we were thinking of having like an activity where develop the township budget, or come up with a specific problem, and okay, some of the enrollees can act as staff, and some of the enrollees can act as the board or advisory committee, kind of go through an exercise of like what it's really like to work some of these issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
I think that is fantastic. What a great idea.
And then to couple that, recording these sessions, so we can do like a township TV, and there are resources that are available at any point of like, I don't understand how a development gets approved,
Yeah.
and go watch it.
Yeah, I was reading the art. Can we just talk freely? I was
Absolutely.
reading the article. Actually, there's a town. I don't know if it's in Sweden or it's some European city. Anyways, they do very same thing, and they invite the public to actually form small groups and solve a real issue that is facing their township. And the best group concept is actually taken to their board of supervisors or commissioners, whatever they call it, and they work on implementing it. So it's a real way for the people of that community to get involved. So I think this is a fantastic idea. I would love to take it to even the schools if we could, because we need more. Sadly, I don't know if they teach civics anymore. To know what that's what's involved.
Yeah.
So I think fantastic.
Speaking of the schools, I was just going to say the same thing. And I'm going to preface this with saying, like, I'm someone who hates how every museum gears the entire thing towards kids instead of like to adults. So I think that like it's good to gear this to a more sophisticated audience. But I do think that if it's in the interest, you could think about, because I know like the schools sometimes ask Representative Otten to go and give a presentation. I actually went to my wife's class one time, and I had it back and forth, and they set up, they were all prepared with a bunch of questions, and they quizzed me and stuff.
That'd be great.
But I would think it would be more for like I personally think it's something that if it looks like it's going well, it's something we could talk with the family town about. But I don't want to like push it towards the kids right away. I think that's just
Down the line, but I definitely think it would be really interesting for them. And
you can take a tour of the sewers.
yeah, because who wouldn't
I
want
did that as a kid. I went on a field trip to.
I just think it would be really good. I just think it's be a hard sell. That's all.
I was walking past, I guess some type of like water plant or whatever over in what is it, Eagle View, this morning, and I was like, I'm sure that's where it lives.
Yes.
I think we would scare children.
Give it a couple years. For sure. You won't have to wonder.
But yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea, so thank you.
The only thing I would add that I just kind of thought of when we were talking about the School of Government is also just how much I appreciate that we've supported our committee members' ongoing education and learning and understanding their role for the Planning Commission or EAC. You know, they have really started to network with other neighboring committees, and I know several members have gone to ongoing education classes that ultimately is going to be a great, investment in the township in return of their feedback they bring to the board. So I hope we can continue supporting them and, heavily advertising opportunities for them as citizens to take the next steps in those roles. All right. Anything else about the 2026 vision board? Always a work in progress. Any public comment about that? All right, we'll move on to number 2, review and discuss compensation policy.
So on our never-ending quest to just write down how we do things, put together this compensation policy, kind of outlines our overall compensation program and philosophy, establish a framework for fair, competitive, transparent compensation practices, really designed to attract, retain, and motivate our good employees that we have, while being responsible stewards of public funds. And so this policy would apply to regular full-time and part-time employees that aren't otherwise covered by a collective bargaining agreement. The idea here is, so we went through last year and everybody's got a job description. And now what we've done is benchmarked our salaries into ranges, and we benchmarked it against other Chester County municipalities, and come up with a minimum, midpoint, and maximum based on each of those job classifications. And what we would do, it's a little bit of a hybrid, because we've got obviously employees here already. We're not gonna adjust anything there, but kind of moving forward, as we bring folks on, we would put them somewhere between the minimum and midpoint of that range for their position. We would do annual increases as we do today. It outlines promotions. If somebody's getting promoted, they're either moving to the minimum of that new salary range or 5%, whichever, getting a 5% bump, whichever's kind of higher. Make market or equity adjustments as necessary. And ultimately, again, employees hired after the effective date of the policy, if the goal is that they never max out, right? The ranges should be adjusted, and if they're choosing to stay in that position, the goal is for them never to reach that maximum level. However, if they were to reach that maximum level, instead of providing them annual increases that go above that maximum level, instead they would get one-time payments, annual one-time payments equivalent to what that would have been. So as an example, if my salary range maxes out at $50,000, and I'm, through increases, I reach that $50,000. Well, the next year, the 3%, I wouldn't get a 3% bump on top of the 50,000. Instead, I would get the cash equivalent of what that would have been. And so what that does is it ends up limiting the pension growth, right? So they're not necessarily getting those salary increases above the maximum while they're getting the annual cash. It's not going towards retirement benefits and things like that, and increasing the township's long-term liabilities. And ultimately, that's what that's what this does, is it helps limit our long-term liabilities. And then the final piece to the policy is allowing for merit payments for high-performing employees. So right now, in years past, we have kind of provided differing amounts of increases for people based on a variety of different factors. What we're kind of proposing here is everybody gets the base increase, right? 3%, 3.5%, whatever that base increase is. And then when the books close, so, you know, February, March, we look and see and say, oh, you know what? We had $100,000 surplus this year. And we would take, working with the board, we'd set a percentage, maybe it's 5% of that 100,000, maybe it's 10% of that 100,000. But whatever that percentage of that surplus is, that would be available for merit payments for high performing employees. So, when Tara is going way above and beyond, it gives us the ability of saying, hey, Tara, here's a one-time payment of, whatever, and thanks for doing a great job, being able to recognize that. So we're making sure everybody's getting the same kind of cost of living increase. And then based on our financial performance, we're able to be able to recognize high-performing employees. So that's the concept that we've kind of laid out in this policy. Love to hear your thoughts.
Overall, I think these are good recommendations. Could see, I mean, I think some education would be needed about the high performing one, that it's not necessarily like an annual thing that you're going to get. It's like a bonus, and maybe you'll get it 1 year and maybe not. I mean, but it's I can feel that I know of situations where someone gets it, they'll be like, well, why didn't I get it this year? So,
Yes.
I mean, I think it can be a little bit, so just, soft hands approach to how to present that. But I think it's a good idea and concept.
I don't have, I appreciate policy and we'll digest it, and I don't have anything else to add.
I don't either, but I agree with Bill that, when you have bonuses, people start to think of it, because you really do need that education, because people start to think that it's part of their compensation.
Yes.
And rely upon it, which is problematic for bonuses. I love a bonus.
Yeah.
But you do set yourself up for that possibility.
Yes.
That would be my only kind of things about it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I do think it's a good idea though, because it incentivizes people. So it's like one of those tricky things where like it's a double-edged sword, but it's a good mechanism to have in your as an incentive. But
All right. Any other comments? Any public comment? All right, number 3, review and discuss performance evaluation policy.
This just documents the fact that we're going to do performance evaluations. It goes into the specifics about evaluations are objective, based on job relevant criteria, based on job descriptions and the quality and quantity of work, knowledge and skill application, initiative problem solving, communication and teamwork, attendance and punctuality, compliance with policies and procedures, including safety standards, customer service and community interactions, and then leadership, financial management, and supervision, if it's applicable to that particular employee. Sets out a standard five-point rating scale, allows us to do performance improvement plans if necessary. But yeah, it essentially says we're going to do annual performance evaluations.
seems pretty standard to me.
It gets tied.
Any comments about that? Any public comment? All right, number 4, discussion on volunteer emergency services tax rebate program.
So this ordinance would establish a volunteer emergency services tax rebate program, and it would provide a maximum amount of $500 credit against eligible volunteers' earned income tax. So we based it on the county's system, and basically we said, if you meet a certain criteria for the property tax rebate through the county, you're eligible for this. If you meet, if you meet the eligibility categories for the county, then you're eligible for this. Lays out the process for the volunteer agencies to submit those that are eligible, and then we send it off to Keystone, and when they go and file their annual tax return, they get up to a $500 credit. It is only applicable to the 0.5% that comes to the township. So we were figuring this out. In order to get the full $500, you have to make at least $100,000 a year.
It doesn't apply to the open space.
No, it does not. And so, obviously, if you make $50,000 a year, you're getting up to $250. It's based on how much you actually pay. So it can never exceed the amount that you actually pay for that 0.5% to the township.
Okay.
And just by a little bit of background, in terms of the county's ordinance, it takes into account a variety of the county's program takes into a variety of factors, including how many calls you respond to, how much training you participate in, how much business of the organization you are supporting, different fire prevention and public education activities, outreach, community outreach, leadership roles that you may take, different pieces like that. So, the intent is not for somebody that shows up to just the meetings, the monthly business meetings of the organization to be able to receive this. You have to be an active participant giving back to the community. We want them to be active volunteers. You have to be a township resident to take advantage of it, and it has to be through service to either Lionville Fire Company or Euclid Ambulance Corps.
I think it's great. I know we're in a crisis of volunteer shortage for both our fire and EMS services, and anything that we can do to support our volunteers and maybe incentivize people getting involved in those services. I am appreciative of these initiatives.
I agree. We do more.
Any public comment? Anything else? All right, moving to number 5, zoning ordinance task force update.
The task force met back in November. We actually postponed our December meeting and met again yesterday. One of the conversations that we had discussed that we started back in November, we had talked about non-conforming uses, non-conforming properties, and then we had talked about natural protection standards. Specifically, we were talking about riparian buffers, and our current ordinance requires a 50-foot buffer. So typically it's 25 feet from the edge of the stream. And we were looking to do a 200-foot buffer. So it would be 100 feet from the edge of the stream on each side. One of the things that came up with that was how impactful that would be to existing properties. If they were to want to put a shed on their property with setbacks and everything else. So we had kind of floated around whether we wanted to keep that in the zoning ordinance, which would ultimately require a property owner to get a variance from that, or if it's something that we move into the saldo where it would only apply to new developments that are coming in. We did have a lengthy discussion. I don't know that we actually landed on a decision for that. We are looking at a map that E.B. Walsh had done and the county had provided us that showed which properties were affected. So we're going to kind of zero in on those properties and see what the impact is to the specific properties so that we can better evaluate that. Happy to take any feedback if you would like to provide any for us moving forward. And then last night we had talked about the residential districts and specific uses. There was a lot of discussion about accessory dwelling units, whether they should be permitted by right, special exception in front of the zoning hearing board, conditional use in front of the board of supervisors. I think there was mixed emotions, mixed feelings on which way we should go with that. So it did kind of get tabled, I think, until the next meeting. There's benefits for both. I think if we do allow for accessory dwelling units by right, it might help property owners with in-law suites because our current in-law suites have to be attached to a house. We also make them record a covenant that says that it cannot be rented after the in-law is no longer occupying that portion of the house. So it would give some flexibility to property owners if they were allowed an accessory dwelling unit by right or a backyard cottage if we want to change what we're calling them. So we did talk about that, and we're working on definitions. There was a lot of talk about the accessory dwelling units and parking requirements, if we should get rid of parking requirements. The ordinance that was proposed would require one additional parking space for an accessory unit. Our current ordinance requires 3 for a single family house. So ultimately you would need 4 parking spaces. The maximum size for an accessory dwelling unit was 1,200 square feet. All of our current ordinances would still govern those units. It would still need to meet all the setbacks in that zoning district. It would need to meet the impervious coverage, stormwater management would be required, permitting for sewer and everything else. If the property owner felt they needed additional trash service, they would need to sign up for that probably.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know in the past, as we were looking at the possibility of ADUs and on-site dwellings and all that, that conversation was largely governed by the sewer capacity restraints on the township. Is there like a Cliff Notes version of what recent discussions with our sewer engineers and acquisition of capacity and all that, and how like, just kind of where we are in relation to the potential of ADUs?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think allowing for backyard cottages of that nature would actually impact the sewer capacity. You figure one EDU is 243 gallons per day. That's based on an average of, I think, 2.7 people per household, which is based on the census data. An a backyard cottage is going to have less than, it is more than likely going to have less than 2.7 people. We know that 243 gallons per day, that that's a that's an allowed number, but in reality, it's probably going to be a lot less than that, and we would have that capacity. Um, you know, the other piece to it is if we were to allow backyard cottages by right in all residential districts, I don't think we're going to see this wild run on like every property in the township that can put one on, putting one on. I mean, there's an expense associated with building that. And while it's a long-term investment that ultimately allows you to capture even more equity in your property, I don't know that it's going to I don't know that we're going to see this proliferation of backyard cottages. I'm going to do something dangerous and say an idea that just popped into my head as I was talking. Um,
Brace yourself.
you know,
Love this moment. Go on, please.
I mean, something that we can also talk about or consider would be allowing for them by right, uh, putting an affordability condition on it. You know, and we have to think through a little bit of how that could work. But maybe there's a way to incentivize, give we we can't just say it has to be affordable, but we can incentivize affordability somehow. And so there may even be a way of looking at that, because ultimately what we're looking to be able to do is address the supply and demand, right? By I mean, there's a lot of things that we're trying to do by allowing for backyard cottages, and especially allowing for them by right. But there may be ways to incentivize that to meet affordability.
Is there a large number of ADUs currently? Are people asking to put these on their property?
So, like I said, currently an in-law suite needs to be attached to the house, with the restrictive covenant. I would say we probably get at least one phone call every 2 weeks with somebody asking for an in-law suite.
That's a lot.
Probably once or twice a year, we'll have somebody ask about a backyard cottage. There's a gentleman that I had met with a few years ago that works with a tiny homes group. And a lot of people reach out to them for a backyard cottage. And I've been telling him no for a handful of years, but I did also tell him that we're getting ready to work on our zoning ordinance. And that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing. So I think if there's an open door for that type of use, we'll probably see a handful, if not more.
I mean, and I don't know if we've looked at other, because I know they're big out west, particularly in the LA area. It addresses the housing affordability issue, right? And as our costs continue to rise in this area, and it's particularly for our seniors, cost prohibitive to live out here. People may start to want to have that as an option. The concern is that's a lot, at least from what I've read about people who are doing these ADU dwellings, is that there's also a lot of Airbnb, and then that leads to other issues, right? Um, so how do you? I haven't read about this in a while, but just to mitigate some of that or just prevent it all, altogether. Um, it definitely needs to have. I think we need to do some more research on it, right? For sure. But I do think that ADUs address the affordability issue, and I would imagine too, a lot of the properties that would be interested in that would be properties that obviously have a lot more land. not kind of these concentrated, developments. But yeah, I'm just kind of thinking this through now. So
Yeah, and part of the conversation we had last night, not to put my thumb on the scale at all, but
mhm.
it was around that about what do we do? Who's this for? Is it to some places only allow family members, some people but I think that really restricts the use of these things and makes them a lot less appealing if you're only going to get a certain lifetime out of your unit. But one of the and we did talk about Airbnbs a little bit. I think there always could be problems with short-term rentals. I think the fact that we don't have a real like tourist attraction here, or like and I'm thinking like if in a city people want to come to a city for like a week or 2 weeks or a month, but that doesn't completely eliminate the short-term rental problem because some people might be I just need it but at the same time I really do one thing I envision is if you have a home and you have a backyard carriage home. And if you're living there, assuming you're still living there, you're not going to rent to a problem person who's in your backyard. I think that's one mitigating. And a point I made last night is, we allow rentals of the homes, and so it makes weird to me that we wouldn't allow rentals of of the backyard homes. But I do agree that there's the public piece part of it. I just don't think I'm also concerned about the affordability, and I think it's a really nice way to give people an option to provide. And I was thinking you mentioned people's parents and all, and I'm also thinking about people's kids coming out of college.
Also, yeah.
Right now I think it's really difficult for anyone under 35 to buy in Euclid Township.
Yeah.
And and yet so we're kind of chasing our younger kids out of the area because they're not going to move to West Whiteland, they're not going to move to Upper Euclid, and they're expensive too. So this gives people an option, but like as Bobby said, it's not going to be. There's a cost involved. I mean, the sewer hookup alone is not is a barrier, right? Like let alone building the house. Like that's going to stop people. As of and we can talk about like what as Tara said, they have to follow the existing zoning, and we can talk about whether we want to change that, make that easier, harder, all that. But it's like I keep saying this last night. It's like our backyard chickens. Everyone was really worried about the backyard chickens, and we're not
make a
overwhelmed
chicken
by
joke,
backyard
too.
chickens. I think this will be a pretty modest part,
Yeah.
but it will allow people to improve their properties. People options for family members, and then options to make some profit off a rental that if and we would have to use our enforcement authority to make sure that there's being maintained and properly and that. So.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. One of the comments that was in the ordinance does say that the property needs to be owner occupied if you're going to rent out the backyard cottage. So as the homeowner, you couldn't rent out to
Your home,
properties.
your-
You have to live there and rent out the backyard cottage. We do have a current rental ordinance for properties that are long-term rentals,
Mhm.
like for people staying for over a year. We don't have the short-term rental ordinance aspect as of right now, but it's definitely something that we're going to be discussing further
Mhm.
moving forward. There's not a lot of Airbnbs in Euclid, but there's definitely a few where somebody may be renting out a bedroom,
Mhm.
but they're living there. That's probably all we've seen so far.
That's interesting, for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment you just made because I was thinking, as a township, we have an obligation to provide for pretty much every use. And if we don't, it puts us in a position where we have less oversight and authority to control that. And absent outlining where and how we want specific uses to apply, we get ourselves into situations. I'll use our hotels as an example. I mean, we have people that are in a variety of situations that need short-term housing or long-term housing, and absent, solidly regulated and available options for them. People are in a situation where we're having trouble making sure that their needs are met and that the health and safety standards in the township can be withheld. So I think that I know that the ADU discussion is something that the board and the township have been throwing around for several years, and we know that we need to have articulated rules and regulations for it. And I also appreciate that it's a difficult conversation. I mean, I think it requires people to kind of take a bigger look at how it impacts themselves and the community. But it's going to be so important. And the evidence of its importance will be in some of the social issues that we continue to see. So I appreciate the conversations and I look forward to hearing more about how they progress. And maybe I'll pop into a task force meeting. But really, I know people have to think outside of the box and people have various opinions and it's just the more we can talk about the concerns, I think the more we can impress the importance of articulating this township policy. Any other comments?
No.
Any public comment? Do you have a comment? Come on up.
They are advertised. We meet the first Wednesday of the month at 5:00 here. It is.
It's a lot of fun conversations like this. More setbacks, though. The much more talk about setbacks, though. So that you need to be ready.
Just to keep things
Yes,
interesting.
exactly.
Good riparian buffer too.
A lot of parity.
All right. If there's nothing else on that, we'll move on to number 6, which is the business meeting agenda review.
Lots of exciting things on here. The first would be we'll have a little recognition ceremony for Chief Alexander and Lieutenant Evans on the occasion of their retirements as of January 31st of this year. We have some plaques for them, and then I believe somebody from Representative Otten's office will be here with citations for both of them. Also on the police subject, we have a resolution codifying the police policy manual. My understanding is that through the years, there's been a number of resolutions updating the police policy manual, and this just codifies that. We'll have an ordinance for the stop sign at Rice Boulevard in Wexford. Permission to advertise the Volunteer Emergency Services Tax Rebate Program ordinance that we spoke about a few minutes ago. An agreement to deputize Sue Bernhard as tax collector for township taxes through 2029. Authorization to enter into a contract with an architect to conduct a space study. A couple of human resource items, just formally informing you that we promoted Ron Stanley into the wastewater superintendent position, and then having you appoint the new police chief and approving his contract. There's a ballot that we have to cast in terms of an amendment to the Pennsylvania Municipal Health Insurance Cooperative Agreement. So just some direction there if you want to vote yes or no on that. And then there's an amendment to the sewer reservation agreement between the township and Hankin, specifically around the 50,000 gallons that we're purchasing from East Calhoun Township. Just adjusting a date by which we have to submit an Act 537 plan for that. Two things that aren't on here that we'll just look to get some feedback on. Well, one last month we had a hearing after the board meeting on a hotel license application. We did not put the decision on the agenda and instead recommending that we wait until February to grant that. we found out that there are some people still at the hotel that we had thought were previously out. And just by way of update there, this morning we had conversations with the county, and they confirmed that next week and the week after they'll be able to have resources on the ground. And so we'll be meeting with the hotels hopefully on Monday to kind of explain what that process will look like and get things started there. Uh, the other one that's relating to Lionville Station Road that we don't have on here, under the municipality's planning code, we have an official map, and through that official map, we're able to designate areas for future reservation. And on the school district property, there's a future reservation for a township park there. Under the municipality's planning code, the developer can notify the township of their intent to subdivide or improve that property, and then that starts a 1-year clock by which the township then has to either acquire the property, vacate that reservation, or begin an eminent domain process. We are really close to finalizing an agreement with the developer on that. And so we were thinking about authorizing an eminent domain process on Monday, but I think we're close enough that we don't necessarily need to do that, and we may instead just look to have a special meeting to approve that agreement or do something else should it be necessary. I think that's everything. We'll probably also have the human resource policies that we talked about on the agenda as well. But I think that's largely it.
I have a question about the Lionville Station Road Township Park in the official map. In the event that that agreement is not where you would like to see it Monday, should we expect to see that on the agenda? Or like, is it you said you thought you were close enough in working with the developer. In the event that that timeline is not in place for Monday, given the fact that we have a limited amount of time to reserve the right to do that, will it go on the agenda?
So we wouldn't be able to add it just because of the 24-hour sunshine rule. We would instead look to have a special meeting to address that if it were necessary.
Any questions or comments about the agenda?
No.
I'm sorry, I have one other question. In regards to the resolution codifying the police policy manual, I know in the past when we've had separate policy updates within the manual, I think that we renewed our signatures. Is there any new or amended policies, or we're just kind of renewing it with the new year, new board type of situation?
Yeah, so my understanding is that there aren't any changes to the manual. It's codifying all the other previous changes into a single manual. So I think it's kind of been Frankenstein, where just kind of
I
put
thought
pieces
that every
on.
time we had a new policy or a change, we had done that, but maybe not over the last.
I'll double check with the chief, but yeah.
Okay, any public comments?
No.
Nope. Any other board comments?
Nope.
All right, we have our announcements at the bottom of the agenda and on our township website for the public to view. And if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
So this is the council zoning map, and we just go over here, here, and here. PRD, and these don't actually exist. So